I used to work at a cemetery during graveyard hours. Ironic, I know. I worked there for about 5 to 6 weeks. Super chill job. Walk under the stars, smoke weed, drink beer. I caught 2 gay guys having sex one time. But the craziest thing that happened was this old guy came to me asking if he could see his daughter. We had regulations that didn't allow people to come in at nighttime, so I told him I really shouldn't, but he started to sob in this weird high-pitched cat-like gargle. So I let him in, but stayed me distance. I went and did my rounds on the opposite side of the cemetery to give the man his space. But then I heard a loud bang coming near the man's direction. So I ran over, and I couldn't find him. I looked around for him until I noticed the front gate was shut and locked. I thought the man must have slammed the gate and locked it behind him. So I decided to chill out and smoke a joint while I walked to my beer stash near the mausoleum. As I walked over, I kept seeing shadows of figures around me. I flashed my light, but didn't see anyone or anything. So I thought it was due to me being high as fuck. As I got closer to the mausoleum, I seen a faint light flickering inside. There is a light inside the building, but it's usually off. And even if it was on, it would be bright. I went into sneak mode and slowly made my way over. I couldn't see through the windows, so I grabbed my pepper spray. I'm not supposed to have, but I thought it may help, especially after the gaze, and went to the front door. The lock on the front was broken, so a large hole was in the door. I looked through the hole and seen 3 candles on the ground, and someone in the center. I would call the police, but I was high and drunk and had beer stashed all over. I kicked the door in and shined the light over to him and told him I was holding a gun. This guy with sunken eyes and cheeks wearing a hooded robe, he had a reverse triangle and eye necklace, looked at me, but didn't speak. I heard sounds behind me, so I turned around to see. There was the old man, with 4 more guys wearing hoods, all with the same necklace, standing behind him. The old guy put his arm around me and walked me away, and the other men went inside. He walked me behind the mausoleum and gave me one of my beers for my stash. I have no idea how he knew where it was. He told me to relax and began telling me how I shouldn't bring this up and how it would look bad on me. He left with his friends after 30 minutes, and I told my boss I caught some guys trying to break in. I still can't figure out what they wanted or what the necklace represents. I do know that they did just put a dead guy in there. That was a Mason, and some other Rosicration or some shit. Any information would be sweet. Part 1. B junior in high school. Painfully introverted and unpopular as I'm younger and smaller than people in my class. So, I only have online friends, thanks to the power of AOL. My best friend at the time actually lived a few hours away from me, IRL. I've known him for about 5 years. We're only a year apart in age. He lives with his grandparents because his dad and mom are abusive deadbeats. Never noticed anything wrong with him. He's funny and cool. Have a semi-crush on him. His grandparents are coming down to visit my city, so we decide it would be awesome if we finally meet face to face. I don't tell my parents I'm going to meet an internet friend. They'd never let it happen unless they were personally chaperoning. I don't want my best friend to meet my mom because she's legitimately schizophrenic and bipolar. And every time she's ever met my other friends, she ends up having a paranoid screaming fit. So I lie to my parents and say I'm going over to someone else's house to work on a project for school. His grandparents will be there, so what could go wrong? His grandparents are going to stay overnight at a motel on the interstate. With my new driver's license, I drive over there to meet them. His grandparents seem pretty cool. But my best friend is, well, he's very attractive. I'm suddenly self-conscious because I am not pretty. We hit it off well after some initial awkwardness of talking in person. We see a movie together with his grandparents and eat dinner. Go back to the motel. He asked me if I can spend the night at the motel. He has his own room, while his grandparents are next door in another. I wasn't expecting this. I really want to stay though, because I think he's been flirting with me all day, but I'm not really sure. Bad life decision time. Call my parents and explain the school project has become an impromptu sleepover with these girlfriends from school. Don't expect them to believe me. Part 2. They believe me, maybe because they're glad to hear that I have real friends now. They tell me to be home in the morning or I'll be in trouble. Holy shit, it worked.jpg. Looks like I'm spending the night in a motel room with my best friend. Things feel a little tense between us, but in a good way. Like we're waiting for each other to make the first move. We're watching a movie on TV while lying on the bed. He suddenly says to me, "Hey, remember when I told you I would teach you how to kiss?" That conversation happened years ago when I started to worry about things like that. "I know how to kiss," I say. "I've had a few boyfriends since then." "Yeah, but they weren't doing it right. I want to show you how to really kiss someone." Oh my god, are we gonna kiss? We're totally going to kiss. He kisses me. It's not bad at all. He puts his hand on my waist and squeezes. Unusually rough, with firm grip. Kind of painful, actually. Tell him that hurts. He stops for a second, but then he grabs one of my boobs and squeezes hard. I'm more in shock than anything else, thinking this is some sort of sick prank. "If you keep doing that, I'll yell and your grandparents will hear." He says, "They won't care if you yell." What the fuck? He holds me down and tells me he's been in love with me for years, and he finally got the opportunity to show me. His grandparents, charmed with his affection for me, brought him down here so we could finally be together. What the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck? I'm trying to kick him off, but I'm over a foot shorter than he is. He's trying to pull off my clothes. I remember slapping him and clawing at his face. Apparently, he's so stunned that I didn't want to be raped that he lets me get away. I lock myself in the bathroom because it's the closest place to go. I sit in the bathroom for hours crying while he waits outside, begging and pleading and apologizing. Part 3. He says we're soulmates, that we've met on the astral plane before. He used an actual pendulum to divine that I'm the perfect person for him, and all sorts of loony shit. Zero indication of any of this in the 5 years that I knew him. I sit and wait until morning when his grandparents come in to take us to breakfast. I fucking run out of the bathroom, out of the motel room, and get in my car. I drive home ASAP. I block him from instant messaging me, too shaken up to consider email. He emails me a few days later saying he doesn't understand why I'm giving him the cold shoulder. Don't reply. More emails that I don't reply to. Eventually, he calls me a bitch and stops. I never talk to him again. Every year, he'll send me a couple emails. Sometimes they're mundane, describing where he is in life. Sometimes they're sad or angry. Zero mention of what happened in that motel room. 11 years later, I'm writing this out for 4chan. I have a different email now. I haven't checked the one he was using in more than 5 years. Sometimes I want to, but I think it's best to leave that shit behind me. I was camping in the Rockies in mid-October a while back, and the first time I was actually scared out of my mind. Decided to go camp overnight, drive up mountain. After setting up camp, I go exploring. Close to dusk when I left. Now it's pretty dark. No flashlight, 'cause clear night with moon. After a while, I stop where I am and start to head back to camp, 'cause it's getting hard to see into thick trees. Suddenly, complete silence. That silence that feels like the air is solid. No insects, no outdoor sounds, no leaves, nothing. Every hair on my body is standing up. Stop dead in tracks. Absolute quiet. Stuffy, suffocating quiet. I see the leaves rustle on the ground, but I don't hear it. Suddenly, I smell it. Like gallons of blood mixed with coins that have been in your hand for a long time. Taste it in my mouth. It's a metallic, rusty taste. It's so strong. My goosebumps have goosebumps. I'm as tense as I've ever been. Deep instinctual fear, like nothing I've ever felt, goes down my spine. Know something is watching me. Something big and powerful. Stay still for hours, it seems like, all the while knowing it's sizing me up. It knows I'm there. Take rifle off of my back. I always have a gun with me when I'm outdoors. Have rifle low and ready. Suddenly, big snap behind me to the left. Fire twice at the spot where I heard it. Hear angry growl in the trees about 35 yards away from me. Can tell that whatever it is, it's big. I know what bears and cougars sound like, and the feel when they're hunting you. This is totally different. Book it back to my camp where my truck is. Hear it following me. Run, run, run. I'm dying, trying not to crash into anything in the dark. Luckily, the moon's out. After running/stumbling forever, I'm back at my truck. Leave tent and supplies. Drive off the mountain that night. Go back the next afternoon. My tent is rags. Food and supplies have been ransacked. Latches are open on all of my containers. It wasn't an animal that did that. It had hands. I've told this story before. It's been capped and can be found somewhere, but I lost all of my saved files a long time ago. I live in Maine. I planned a mission of traveling around part of the state. Traveled through the woods. Only reason was to see if I could travel so far with minimal equipment and no human interaction. Making my travels. See police cars driving by at high speed on first day. Duck behind log as to not be seen. Nearly a whole convoy rolls by. Wander about carrying on travels. Bait and capture a couple rabbits. Kill them. Skin, cook, and eat one. Put other two in bag. Create makeshift axe for crude structure building. No tent brought. Find abandoned rusty-ass car. Get into back seat and sleep in car overnight. Fox howling, bird screams. Nothing out of the ordinary. Thud, thud, thud. 3 bangs hit the car's hood. Flashlight in general direction. Nothing. Probably just a fox jumping across the hood. Sleep. Wake up next morning to find my axe slapped dead center into one of the rabbits. Its pelt removed, and some of its meat is gone. Presume animals, but the axe part is scary. Keep traveling over that day. Hear screams and running in a small dip in the scenery around me. Crawl over. Remember, no human contact. See someone running down the hill opposite side of the dip into the center. Person stops, looks around, and then heads up the hill towards where I am. Bolt it. Made a safe distance and carry on walking. Keep walking. Hear screams. Bolt behind a tree. Woman with brown, muddy, leaf-covered hair runs around. Screams for a bit. Ragged clothes and no shoes. Blood on her feet and bottom of her dress. She starts punching a tree and runs off in a direction. Freaking the fuck out. Run in the opposite direction of her. Fall down a hill. Go to grab my pistol. Fall down into a taped off area. Police everywhere. I reached character limit, so all in all, I had rolled into a murder scene. Bodies were already bagged and taken away, but evidence was being looked for. I was taken in and questioned. Mentioned the person I saw, but police also were very curious of what I was doing. Police then took me home, halfway across the state. This next story takes place when I was in the wannabe Boy Scouts group. Linked to the US Boy Scouts, but still a cheap version of it. They organized this huge road trip to my friend's natural reserve, because camping and survival and whatnot. I meet this kid. I can't remember his name pretty well, so let's call him X. X is a year younger than me. This all happened when I was around 9 years old, by the way. He's pretty cool. He's fun and adventurous. Spend my day with him because best new friends. Eventually, night falls. He says he's going for a walk. Wants me to go with him. I'm a big-ass friend Ben, so I deny. But it's dark and we have no lights, and it's scary. He leaves anyway. A couple of hours pass, and he still hasn't come back. I start telling people, X went into the forest and is missing. Everyone flips shit. They make search groups, adults, and flashlights. After a while, they call me. There is no kid named X on the list of kids that came on the trip. They never believed me. I dreamed about X for the next couple of days. Friends told me that I spent the day alone. The day we left, I look back and see X in the forest. He waves. I tell everyone he's there. By the time everyone turns around, there's nothing. Calls me crazy. I still don't know what the fuck is wrong with the place. I still go there, and it's way more urbanized than back then. But I always have this eerie feeling, especially after Hurricane Mitch, or Stan, I can't remember which one. A flood killed a couple of people and buried them, and no bodies were found. It's still a nice place though, a couple of legends around the area, but that's pretty much about it about the place. This happened almost 2 years ago exactly. My friend was taking flight lessons out of Martinsburg, West Virginia that summer, and he liked to fly out over the mountains. One day while flying towards the mountains, he saw a little half-built house in the middle of a field on a back roads. After he gets home, he calls me and asks if I want to go investigate it with him later that night. Being an adventurer, I agree. We finally get to the road at about 10:30 p.m. The road is paved, but his car nearly takes up both lanes since the road is so narrow. We both notice a road sign with an inverted cross spray painted on it. Think it's just local kids fucking around, so we continue. No houses at all on this road, which seems strange. Only hayfields, cornfields, and woods. Finally arrive at field where the house is. Pull off the road about 6 feet into the field, where nothing is going except weeds. Being 90 degrees out that day, we had the AC on and windows up. My friend shuts the car off and we step out. Both of us immediately smell something dead. While getting out of the car, I nearly step on a chicken carcass that's without a head. We both think it's strange, but decide to look for the half-built house. My friend says he thinks they stopped building it since it was overgrown with weeds. As we walked farther into the field, we noticed more and more dead carcasses. Deer, more chicken, rabbits, and etc. Most of which were already decomposing, but some looked very fresh. The carcasses were all torn apart. Limbs were scattered everywhere, and the whole place smelled like death. We were getting concerned at this point, but found a party site near the back of the field, so we pressed on. There were a few lawn chairs, a beer pong table which had been knocked over, empty beer cans and beer cases, but also a few half-full beer cases and blankets and sleeping bags, which looked like had been left behind in a hurry. We took the beer and were joking around, and had almost forgotten about the carcasses, when we realized that the party looked like it had been abandoned in a hell of a hurry. Why didn't anyone take the beer, the sleeping bags, or chairs with them? We got kinda spooked when we thought something had to scare these guys pretty good, to just haul ass out of a party and leave everything behind. So, we decided to leave. We both thought we heard something moving slowly in the woods behind the field. After we were on the way home, we both admitted we felt like we were being watched. The next day we were talking about it again, and we got braver and decided to go back with a baseball bat and a gun. But we went in the evening before it got dark. We got to the field again, and were shocked to see nails and broken glass all over the only place we could park, which hadn't been there the night before, and a wooden post had been set up that said no trespassing, and smeared on it was blood with a fresh decapitated chicken laying in front of the sign. I saw what could only be described as a UFO one night on the property that I used to live at. I went outside as I sometimes like to do, and then, out of nowhere above the tree line, this rectangular object with a semi-transparent trail of light just came out from the left. There was no sound whatsoever, and it was moving at a pretty fast, yet easily observable speed. But as it began to move towards the larger trees off to the right, I could start to see it flicker through the branches until it just completely vanished behind the tree trunks. It didn't come out of the other side of the trees. Then, about 10 to 15 seconds later, 2 planes, one large and one small, came flying from the same direction. I do know that there's an airbase some X kilometers from where we were, But that was no identifiable human aircraft, as far as I could tell.